Hello and welcome to Procrastination Point's video of Snark. If you came here because you thought that this was an audiobook, please stick around and maybe learn some reading and listening comprehension skills. I read books, discuss what went wrong, and how they can possibly be fixed. I'm continuing my read-through of Crewel by Gennifer Albin. Not the first video, go check out the others, links are posted below. Chapter 18. Valerie doesn't come to style me. What? I thought that she'd been killed, or did I completely misunderstand what Laura Still had said to Ed? For about a page, Ed lies around drinking and moping, which, wow, that seems like a super healthy way to cope with grief and guilt. She's also drinking in order to try and forget about how she needed to push Jost away. Somebody comes into her room, and it takes her a moment to realize that it's Eric, not Jost. He tells her that she has a meeting with Cormac, and he's there to escort her. She feels numb, and she takes his arm, and he leads her away. What Eric failed to mention is that this isn't a one-on-one meeting with Cormac, that both Mela and Laura would also be there. They're waiting for Ad when she comes in. However, Ad is quick with the biting sarcasm the second that Cormac opens his mouth to issue empty platitudes about Enora's death. She also won't accept excuses for Enora's death that Mela tries to say. When Mela tries to call out Ad's attitude, Laura is quick to put Mela back into her place. That Ad is in a station above Mela. She's barely even been on a loom. Mela says, "Yes, thank you. I've been thinking about how, for a book about weaving and crueling, we've only seen Ad working on a loom literally once." Cormac then says this: "The Coventry needs to maintain a face of power," which, whoa there, Betty, that kind of sounded like it was supposed to have been an inside thought. The idea that they have to keep pretending like everything is roses and sunshine. "If you plan to move her into my position, she needs to be prepared, not indoctrinated." Maybe it's because we only know as much as Ad does about the government, but I still don't understand why they need these insolent men telling the women what to do. Laura still says that the spinsters rely on the guild, but it's like, for what? What could possibly be so important that you're willing to let yourselves be slaves like this? Mela says that Ad isn't ready to become the next Crueler. When Ad protests this, Laura still is the kind voice of reason who points out that she's only done one lesson with her. Ad then dares to ask, "What if I don't want to be the next Crueler?" Which I kind of feel like there's a completely and utterly nothing that they can do to stop her if she decides to go on a rampage. Girl, simply do it. Destroy the fabric of reality. Rain destruction down upon the land and see what happens. Laura still then explains that she's not going to get any more medical treatments done to prolong her life. So from now until the point that Laura still eventually dies, Ad is going to study with her every single day. "That girl would have no training if it weren't for me," she says, stabbing the air in my direction. "That girl," Cormac says quietly, "would be dead if it were up to you. You are in danger of overstepping your bounds." I'm confused about Mela's role here because it kind of seems like she's not furthering the conversation and would only like to see Ad dead. So why is she here? Is it the flimsy excuse that Mela is in charge? Both Cormac and Laura still have already gone out of their way to establish that it's a sham in the face of the Cruelers. This is stupid. "And we know what happens to girls who overstep their bounds," I add. No one laughs. I guess Ad is done taking nonsense from Mela. I'm glad, mainly because the last several young adult dystopias that I've read, the MC had no freaking spine at all. Laura still has to speak with Cormac outside, which leaves Ad with Mela. Now alone, Mela tries to offer more empty words about the loss of Enora, but Ad is really over pretending like she gives a hoot about Mela. She's quick to call her out. I'd also like to highlight the fact that Mela said that Enora was a good spinster, rather than literally anything about who Enora was as a person, because Mela has swallowed the internalized misogyny so much that it's literally the only thing Enora was to Mela, a pair of magic spinning hands, not an actual person. Ad tries to ask if Priyana told Mela about Valerie and Enora. However, this leads to Ad talking about how Mela shaped Priyana into being her little lapdog. Mela fires back with, "Oh no, Priyana would have never been your friend," which is really rich considering that Mela made the decision for both girls, and it's also something that Ad is quick to throw into Mela's face. Mela also acts like she did you a favor in regards towards both Priyana but also Amy, which I feel like this would be hinting at something so much bigger than Ad could possibly imagine, is what I would say if I had any hope of this series having actual depths. Since I'm going to be the next Crueler, she's just doing some repair work on the damage she's inflicted. I'm glad that Ad can see Mela's words for what they really are. Ad leaves the room, fuming about the entire thing. Eric had been tasked to protect Ad, which also includes sleeping outside her room. That's not weird or creepy at all. As they go, he tries to bring up their kiss, but Ad insists that she was drunk, that she's over it. However, Eric is quick to say that he's not, which, yes, we hardly ever see the heartbreak from the other side, so I'm kind of happy that we're seeing it now. Ad goes on to say that with her promotion, her relationship with Eric isn't going to happen. Eric gets confused by what she means with promotion, which surprises Ad. She thought that everybody knew at this point. Eric only says that it sure explains Mayla's change of behavior in regards to Ad. He then begs for Ad's forgiveness. I'm not sure why he needs to be forgiven, but okay. Ad is quick to say that she does forgive him, but that is not going to change their relationship. Eric insists that he'll wait, which, dude, stop. You're quickly entering into insult territory here. No is a complete sentence. When she tells him things have changed, he takes a random stab in the dark and presumes that she's with Joss, which, without further context, seems like an insane leap to make. Like, what if the change that she's talking about are political in nature? She's literally meeting with Cormac and Lorcil. Why would Eric simply assume that another man featured in this? I have more resources at my disposal and a certain value to the guild. He doesn't. You'll get him killed. Ah, yes, I completely fell in love with him when he threatened the untimely demise of my boyfriend. Said nobody. Ever. Eric then has the audacity to tell her, think about what you want, which is insanely laughable because he's been dismissing and ignoring her wishes this entire chapter. I'm calling it. Eric is going to turn into the bitter incel and end up hurting Ad later in the series because he wasn't picked. He tells her that she has to come up with a plan of action and implement it. This chapter contains discussions of suicide. Viewer discretion is advised. Chapter 19. The chapter opens with Ad finding a seam in the fabric of reality and opening it to stare at what's under. Lorcil comes into the room right then and warns her not to go in there, that she could starve. Ad comments that she wants to touch what's under, and Lorcil agrees that she also feels drawn to it, but she's never touched it. Ad admires Lorcil's strength in resisting touching because Ad wants to touch it so badly. Lorcil then talks about how tired she is. Not tired like a post-Thanksgiving kind of tired, but tired in that soul-crushing I've been alive for too long sort of way. And asks if that's why she's refusing to prolong her life anymore, and Lorcil agrees that that's part of it. She then starts to explain that as corrupt as things have gotten, Lorcil continues with her crueling work in spite of it all, that there's so much more out there that has nothing to do with Cormac and Mayla and the illusion of their control. When Ad says that she's starting to understand what Lorcil is talking about, Lorcil says that it's not exactly a subject that can be easily grasped. It's something that only comes from literal decades of having been alive. Lorcil then says that if Ad were to walk away from this, that there would probably be a decade worth of raw materials that they could use before everything began to fall apart. And obviously that would be some apocalyptic level if things were to get to that point. Horace here demanding to know why it is that this world is built on the back of slave labor of women, yet Lorcil is asking Ad to continue to be another cog in the machine of their own oppression. Ad says that she won't leave because of her sister, but Lorcil says that she's telling Ad all of this stuff so that Ad can make an actual informed decision rather than acting rashly using only her emotions. This brings them to the subject of being mapped, and more specifically to why it is that men are less likely to see the reality weave. However, Lorcil says that she's convinced that there's a secret stash of male spinsters somewhere. What this has to do with mapping is that they're obviously trying to figure out how the women do what they do so that they can replicate it, put it into somebody else's brains. Horace here again, asking why it is that the guild is looking for control. Why don't they simply raise up all the baby girls and brainwash them from infancy, then marry off all the girls without talent? Because again, nobody needs 500 toilet cleaners. Ad insists that she won't let them do another mapping session, but Lorcil is quick to say that they won't ask permission because, as I've been saying this entire time, the girls are not actual people to the guild. They are commodities, and the second that their abilities become replaceable, the women will be quickly tossed aside. Look me in the eye and tell me that you think that every spinster who has dedicated her life to weaving for the guild knows all of the guild's dirty little secrets are going to be allowed to leave the commentaries and live normal lives. It doesn't take Ad long to come to the same conclusion, of which I'm thankful for. So I'm so tired of dumb protagonists who never seem to quite understand exactly what's on the line. However, the subject of remapping the spinsters comes back to what happened with Honora. Lorcil says that Honora's relationship with Valerie was nothing but a paper-thin excuse to get her in. They took her in the middle of the night without notifying Lorcil. Lorcil goes on to say that the suicide has shaken those on top, that Ad probably has a week before they come for her. Ad obviously wants to run, but she's known for a while that the guild always knows where she is at all times, so running isn't exactly an option. She questions if Honora knew this, and that's why she killed herself. Lorcil says that it's part of it. Then Ad asks a really important question. What happens when somebody dies, but isn't ripped? Lorcil says that it's a rare occurrence these days, but part of the thread supply disappears. Then it's up to the spinsters to remove the remains. She goes on to say that ripping wasn't always done so carefully, that when she started her crueling work, they simply let people die naturally and then patched those holes. But 50 years ago, the guild started obsessively collecting the threads that have been ripped. I think that I'm a little hung up over how when asks what the guild does with all of those threads, Laura still doesn't know. And I get that she's only one woman, but it's scary how much power that she holds over the literal fabric of reality, yet she's not actually in charge. It's scary how little Laura still actually cares about helping people. Lauracil asks what happens to those thread remains. Lauracil says that she thinks that they return into the fabric of reality. However, she's certain that the guild is taking all of those threads as a measure of controlling things that they don't understand. And then they have the freaking audacity to try and create their own spinsters, their own Crewelers. They don't even know what they're doing. When Lauracil explains about the stuff that they get from the Earth, it sounds to Ad like the Earth is in a frozen state. Lauracil then explains what warping is, which is the thing that Ad has been doing to steal moments with Joss. She explains what she can do to Lauracil, who gives the younger girl further instructions on how to do it better. However, Lauracil warns that while it does create a little bubble, it's not like Ad has frozen time everywhere completely, that things go on as usual outside, only further away from the bubble. Eventually, the guild will break in and grab her. Ad confesses that Honora advised her not to speak of her weaving abilities to anybody. Lauracil says that Honora was simply trying to protect her in the only way that she knew how. As she thinks about it, Ad takes some measure in knowing that at least part of Honora went back into the weave itself. She did manage to escape from this hellscape in her own way. Lauracil then tells Ad that Cormac is obsessed with understanding why Honora did it. He blames Valerie, which is why Valerie herself was ripped, which is exactly what I thought had happened to her, yet why was Ad acting like she was waiting around for Valerie in the previous chapter? But even the book admits that it has less to do with Valerie and more to do with every awful thing being slammed onto these poor women. What's worse is that they made it 10 times worse by trying to remap her, and then they have the audacity to act surprised when she did kill herself, as if their own actions were the root cause of why Honora killed herself. If Cormac is so eager to understand why Honora killed herself, he simply needs to look in the mirror. Ad then desperately asks for Lauracil to train her, to which she says that Ad doesn't need training, that all of this is nothing but an excuse to buy Ad some more time. Ad goes back to her room thinking about what she'd discussed. Lauracil might not believe Cormac is responsible for Honora's death, but I saw what he did to her. Honestly, Cormac may not have sliced Honora's arms up, but he sure was a massive reason why she did what she did. Once again, you can't treat people like dirt and then be surprised that they'd rather off themselves than continue to endure abuse. However, Ad is of the opinion that there's something important that even Lauracil is overlooking in regards towards Honora's death. Honora's love for Ad. That there was no way that somebody who obsessed so much over what shoes Ad should wear would want to kill herself. I feel like this issue isn't exactly as black and white as Ed is making it seem. Like, you can still show up and do your job and love the people in your life, but at the same time look around you and decide that you've had enough. And judging by the way that Cormac had been treating her, the abuse that she must have suffered when undergoing the remapping, Honora must have been out of her mind with terror, even after Valerie managed to snap her out of some of the remapping. However, in the elevator on the way back to her room, Ad randomly thinks about the digifile that Honora had given her. She goes to get it and looks through for literally anything, any clue as to what might have been on her mind before she killed herself. At first glance, okay, it's literally a cell phone. Why do sci-fi novels insist on calling them such bizarre names? It's a freaking phone. Stop it. A first glance at the phone doesn't reveal anything special, but Ad thinks about the first time she met Honora. Ad was removing the screens on her fake windows to cause a thunderstorm, so she clicks on the weather app and finds a letter addressed to her. Thanks for listening to my book Snark on YouTube. New videos are up every Monday, but stick around because I sometimes drop random videos on other days too. Just as a reminder, even if you can't financially support me, there are other ways to help me out. The first is watching this video as well as all my other videos. It's also important to like and subscribe. Finally, you can share this video with all of your friends so that they can help as well. If you're already caught up with all of my videos, you can go to Tumblr for my main book. Snark's always free and updated every morning. Newly added to Patreon is to become a member without paying. You'll get access to the same things on Tumblr, but on Patreon. Supporters can have access to so many more books now starting at $1 a month. Also new is a 1-week free Patreon trial, so be sure to check that out. Special thanks to Dawn and Phoebe for supporting me on Patreon already. If you want to hear your name in my video next week, either support me on Patreon or make a one-time donation. Do you like my Snark so much that you want me to snark your writing? I do that too. For just $6 per chapter, I will tell you how awful that your writing is, but not to worry if you feel like you couldn't take the criticism. I also offer regular book editing as well, just $10 per chapter. You can contact me on any of my social media platforms if you have further questions. If you want to read some of the things that I've written, you can purchase my works on Amazon. I have a slew of spicy short stories and 2 full-length novels. levels. I also frequently run flash sales on my stories, and if you don't follow me on any social media, you might want to do so just so you can know when I might be offering things for free. Links for everything will be posted below. See you next week, guys!